And welcome to Down the Alley. This is PMAC.
This is Katie.
And JP.
And another week, another section. We're getting ready to dive into section 7. Was that a rhyme? Holy rhyme right off the bat. Was that a rhyme? Is that a poem?
Yeah, I think that was a weird start. That was not like you. But
Very uncharacteristic intro, but here we are. Section 7. We're going to dive into a lot of different things. We're coming off a hot weekend, Down the Alley Coaches Summit. Unreal. We'll talk more at the end. We've got some, I don't know, rumblings, I'll say, some ideas that we have. I don't know if we're going to give the people a peek behind the curtain on what's to come. I'm excited. I'm fired up. Yeah, I don't know what else is going on quickly here before we dive into section 7, get a couple interviews going. Anything quickly? How's your guys' weeks going?
the week's been going good. It's been going by fast. We got a little change of scenery behind me now for those on the YouTube. I painted my office, hung up some art, which I don't ever paint. I just don't do it. It's not worth it. It like I went to bed after the weekend of doing it, feeling like I could barely move because you're like reaching up at awkward angles, your back hurts. Like we're talking about getting old. I don't think my number is quite old yet, but my body feels like it's just destroyed at this point. Like moving furniture around for 2 minutes, I got to sit down because my back hurts so bad. So I don't know. I like it, but it's just never again, never painting again.
Is it black?
No, it's green, but it looks black, which I don't know how I feel about. It's kind of cool, but you know,
Why'd you do the door too? Just curious. I'm
I
not a
don't know.
painting like aficionado, but I am just curious. I don't ever paint the doors.
I'm not either. Madeline just pointed and I painted. So yeah.
I agree about the painting thing. Like when you move into a new house, everyone's like, "Oh, it's just paint. You can change paint." And I'm like, "Yeah, but do you know how much time and effort that takes?" I painted this room and it took all weekend.
Yeah.
And
We
now
li-
I've hired it out.
we literally woke up at 7 o'clock the Saturday morning we started,
Yeah,
painted until about 10, did the same thing that Sunday. I left for a couple hours to do the coach or the captain's cup, came back, painted till 11.
it looks good. I
Thank
get
you.
really lazy around like the trim and like covering holes. And like these guys that I have, shout out, no free ads, but I actually like they are like the bee's knees. It's actually one of Ted's wife's friends from high school. And he's done him and his brother, like they've like have a painting company. I don't even know what it's called. I just text the guy and they've done our bathroom now, like our master bathroom and our living room has a vaulted ceiling. And I like they do it in like a couple hours.
Yeah, they're machines.
And like it's like and like I so now I just refuse to do anything. And they will be hired for every painting need
I keep
in
telling
my house.
myself as a new homeowner, I gotta at least do the first project of whatever
Yeah,
project we do. I gotta like earn my stripes a little bit.
that's fair.
So, but the basement's next, and there's new carpet down there. So I'm not even gonna risk it. Someone's gonna come in and do that one because
What
otherwise I'm gonna
project
have
are
to
you gonna do?
buy
Is it the paintings the project or are you gonna take on more?
a painting's a project for now. So
Love it.
gotta
Because I
earn
do
a little bit
everything. I
more
mean, I do
cash.
everything, but like, don't get me wrong. I absolutely hate painting. I would rather do like electrical than painting.
Yeah, I gotta do that too. But if anyone wants to come over and help me out down the
Yeah,
Alley
I
Nation,
don't.
hit me
I
up.
don't. I
I'll pay
absolutely
you.
hate it.
Anybody, any listeners?
Yeah,
No, want to
kids
make
love
some.
painting. Like I feel like younger people love painting because it was so forbidden. So now it's just like get the roller going, but they don't have to clean up and like do the trim and everything like that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
enough about new home ownership, enough about painting walls. We've got Coach Geis. Sorry if I mispronounced your last name. First time meeting Coach Brad here from Andover girls lacrosse. Maybe the most humble coach we've had on. I slid in his DMs the other day, asked him to come down the alley with us. He said he was feeling a lot of pressure and was pumping other coaches' tires, which I appreciate. And I'm sure they appreciate too. But a coach that just won his section, a little too humble. I was pumping. Hopefully, he felt the tire pump in the DMs because I think Down the Alley Nation is going to be fired up to have Andover come down the alley with us. So, Coach, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Absolutely. You did a fantastic job with the pronunciation too. So good work.
Oh, I'm 2 for 2, pumping your tires, get the name right. Coach, just yeah, again, thanks for coming on. How's your off season been, and are you gearing up for April 3?
Good. I mean, obviously, just like everybody else, waiting for the snow to melt. I think I might drive past the field about 3 times a day. But other than that, it's been a good off season. It's time for it to be over, and it's time to get back on the field. That's, I think, the most exciting part of this time of year is you finally get to get back out and get with your kids again and get back to work. And we're definitely ready.
Yeah, and most importantly, with what you said, the weather needs to turn. We need the snow to melt, and we need to get out of the 30s. Give me at least 45, 50. I can deal with that once we get outside.
I looked today, and April 3rd is supposed to be like 41 and raining. So
In true
sorry,
Minnesota
it's the
fashion.
40s. It's at least we're in the 40s. And like I think it went to like the second or like the Tuesday or Wednesday, and it was like we're in the 40s. I don't think we're gonna be in the 30s. I think we'll have 40s. And that rain maybe the rain's gonna go overnight. Maybe it'll be an overnight rain.
I think my go-to line in those situations is always, "We played in worse." So that's all that matters.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, let's jump right into it. You're a coach that, I don't think any of us have met before, have had any experience. So would just love an introduction. What's your background? How did you get into the game, and how long have you been with Andover?
Sure. As you've heard throughout your interviews, really it's two paths of this, right? Either you played in high school and played in college and you're coaching, or you had a kid who played. And I'm path number two. So grew up in North Dakota, played basketball there for years, met my wife in Fargo Moorhead, moved to the Twin Cities, had kids, was firmly expecting to be coaching basketball at some point. And my oldest daughter around age 11 was like, "Hey, this lacrosse thing is brand new. Can I try it?" And fell in love. So she fell in love, and like a whole lot of Minneapolis programs, Andover at the time, first year, 13 kids in the youth program. Another guy was sitting next to me, and he's like, "Hey, we have board positions. Can you come help out?" And I was like, "Fine, okay." Next spring, the question came up, we want to do a spring team, but the only two coaches we have are college kids. They're not back. So if we want to do a spring team, someone's got to coach it. So Daniel Butcher, he and I started that up. Again, we managed the board in the spring program, moved that on to eventually coaching summer. So around 2010-11. And then as those kids that we coached through youth, and grew the program pretty quickly there. So as those kids started to come up to high school, got lucky enough to have the high school program come open, and have a fair number of their parents reach out and say, "Hey, we've done a great job with the youth. They love you. They love the program. They love lacrosse. You clearly love it. Will you come coach high school?" And so that was a whole lot of conversations with the family, a whole lot of conversations with work to say, "Can we make this work?" Luckily, everybody was fantastic about it. Took the program over in 2016, and have been with the high school now at Andover ever since.
Do you still have kids in the program, or have you kind of outlasted the kids?
I have outlasted the kids, so that's I'll get a little obsessive about the things that I fall in love with, and this is one of them. So my oldest daughter is a senior playing out at Rochester, New York, and my youngest is playing club at Drexel in Philly, and she's a junior or a sophomore, I should say. So they've both been gone for a few years, but I've had, certainly have built enough relationships in the program and had enough fun with these kids that it's just hard, and still very connected to our youth program and the club scene here. We've started up a club program since, and so tied into all of that makes it a little hard to say no and back out.
Yeah, for sure. And having a basketball background, obviously, I'm sure it was an easier transition for you. A lot of the same schemes, philosophies, and things. What was your experience learning the sport? I know, my dad actually played, or my stepdad played club at UMD, so they were kind of learning through the playbook. My buddies' dads who jumped in and coached, they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna run you, and we're gonna be in really good shape, and we'll figure everything else after."
Yeah, and I think to your point, there's a lot of stuff that transfers, right? I mean, at the end of the day, get in front of somebody on defense, stay in front of them, move the ball on offense, find open players, good things happen. I think the biggest thing for us is, and the thing you'll still see today through whatever program we're with is, I started out with a goalie. So my oldest is a goalie, and found out real quick that there wasn't a whole lot of defense being played in the early 2010s. Especially in girls lacrosse, it was a world where you get the draw, your fastest kid runs down the field, fires on the goalie, and then we go back and take another draw. And so right away, the first thing we did is we just got to stop that, right? So spent a whole lot of time learning the defensive side of the ball and just figuring out ways to, probably not the right ways at the time, but ways to stop it and come up with options to really kind of slow teams down and at least give us a chance to breathe in those situations. So picked up the defensive side of it. The good news is, like I said, Daniel Butcher's been with me forever, took the offensive side of it, and we really kind of tag teamed at the youth level. And then for high school for a few years, I was alone and been lucky enough to have him join me at the high school level, along with Haley Walsh, one of our former players who's coaching with us and has for a couple of years. So that's made it much easier. The transition's been fantastic and really been a good opportunity to learn the game. Like to think the right way because, again, we also didn't come into a program that had been established too. So we weren't coming in with a team that had won 3 state titles and you're like, oh my God, I have to win. You come in with the mindset, I'm going to grow the program. I'm going to teach kids to play the game. It's fun. That's the most important part. Get them to come back. And shockingly enough, if you do the right thing, you're going to win some games eventually. And that's really kind of what we've done over the years of building the program.
You mentioned it. Would love for you to expand on it. Every program, and it's interesting to hear different coaches on, their involvement in the youth program, or if they even had, some coaches don't even have a youth program. So it sounds like you guys do, and you grew up, or not, you didn't grow up, but you kind of coached through the youth program until you were a high school coach. How have you continued that connection between the youth and high school program in Andover?
Yeah. So one of the things you get your traditions conversation, it's one of the things that kind of falls into that bucket for us because now, and again, my wife would tell me that it gets a little too insane spring and summer, but I still coach our youth and still direct our youth program. So coach our 14s in spring and summer, and then our 18s, we do some 18U stuff in the summer as well. So very involved, but more importantly, most of our coaches are current high school players or former high school players. So that's been one of the things for me that's been a huge finding is it's been an opportunity to have those players who've come up through our program and understand what we're trying to do, the culture we're trying to build, and really what we're trying to grow, and getting those players to then come back and help out. And you figure out if they want to coach, they figure out if they're good at it and if it's something they love, but also really instills in them and in those next kids, because at some point, those 10th grade or those 10Us come up and they end up playing and they remember when they were coached by the high school kids and they come up and they're like, okay, when can I coach? When can I coach? So that's the exciting part for me is, it's a lot of work and definitely a lot of hours away from home, but also really rewarding. And I think more than anything, it allows some continuity across the way, right? I mean, the stuff we're teaching at 10U, 12U, 14U is the same stuff that they're going to learn at the high school level because that's how we built it.
Yeah, when you're go ahead.
I was just going to say, so it sounds like keeping that kind of tight-knit community of your coaches and players has been a huge key for success for you guys. But what else has been a key to success for you? Because I've been looking at the records from 2015 before you got there and every season since. You guys have had a better record every single year. Last year winning your section, like what's been the key to have every year you guys grow as a more talented program?
Yeah, and I think Coach Kelsey kind of hit on it when she talked earlier too. She mentioned she started out in Anoka about the same time I started out in Andover at the youth level. And one of the things she talked about was bunches of multi-sport athletes, right? And so for us, I know prior to 2010, 2011, not so much a sport, it was more an activity, and kids did it as a way to just do something in the off season. By the time we got to 2011 and started to kind of build the youth program up and then eventually the high school program, you had more kids who were either doing it as a solo sport, that was their sport, or even if they're playing another sport, they're more willing to do other things now. And so the biggest thing is kids are playing year round, or at least touching a stick year round. My first year, we had 35, 40 kids. Most of them picked their stick up April 1st, put their stick down June 1st, and that was it. They picked it up again at the beginning of next year and, couldn't understand why cradling was hard. Well, that's the thing, right? It takes time and it works on it. So, that was kind of the growth process for us. And I think, I mentioned working through a club program up here. That's the same story, right? We found the exact same things. We had a bunch of kids who would have played club or who would have liked the idea, but it's a long way, right? I mean, at the end of the day, to come down to play at a 36 or an elite or a true, that's an hour and a half. And not to say we didn't have kids that would do it, but it's just hard. So we started up Yeti Lacrosse up on this side of the city. Definitely a different level of program. It's not a Minnesota elite. You're not talking about a program that's at that level, but a way for those kids to play and a way for those kids who are playing other sports to get that kind of competition and to understand that they can play later on too. I mean, that's been the other fun for us is I think, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've turned out, 15 kids out of our high school program that have gone on to play something post-secondary. And that's a big deal too, because now kids that are coming up see that there's kids who are playing high school lacrosse and they go play college lacrosse. And wow, I could be that. And we remind our kids all the time, if you want to play post high school, there's a place for you. We will find a place for you somewhere. And the joy of this sport, as opposed to a hockey or something like that, where if you didn't play since you were 3, you're just not going to play. Here, I've got a bunch of kids who started high school players and end up being, all conference, all section level players by the time they're juniors and seniors if they work hard and they're athletic.
You can't play quite as long as you can golf, but I agree with your statement. And I actually, I haven't really had a lot of experience with Yeti, but it sounds like a lot of the same principles as how we run our club and what we're about. So that's awesome. And we're gonna official invite. We're gonna have to get you to down the alley event and play for a wagon. So
yeah, I mean, you're really nailing it on the head, and we preach that all the time of like it wouldn't really make. One of my best friends lives in Ham Lake, and her husband grew up in Andover, and it just is like it doesn't make sense about like it's not really about the club. Like I'm not gonna go recruit those girls at Team 36 because you're right, you're gonna be driving an hour and 45 minutes to practice. Like it just that doesn't make any sense, and it's gonna take the fun out of it. And it's like you just really nailed it on the head of like that doesn't mean you shouldn't play. That doesn't mean you can't play. That doesn't mean you can't go to tournaments and play post college. It's right. Like there is a little bit of an element of like you got to kind of play near your house, like to a certain extent, and like I know there's people that drive certainly, but I think that's super cool. I think we've run into you guys in Pipe City before.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been
years ago because we're going back this summer, but gosh, that's super cool. And it really does take someone like you to just like bring it down to the youth level. So that makes me fearful of Andover in the future, because that's going to be for sure a force to be reckoned with.
Looking back at last season, 15-3, you only had one regular season loss.
Take us back to that loss, first of all, because it is kind of an anomaly on the schedule. And then PMAC, finish your statement, but I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. And just, I just wanted to open up, talking about last season in general and kind of look back one season before we talk about this upcoming year.
Absolutely. So the loss is a fair question, and it kind of goes back to what JP mentioned too. Is you're looking at the program growing. One of the things, and I think you mentioned talking to the Armstrong coach Emily earlier. We're in the Northwest Suburban as well, and one of the negatives of having a huge conference is you don't get a whole lot of out of conference games. So with that single out of conference game, in a conference where the top and the bottom can be a little bit spread out, and it's changed over time. Certainly, the good teams haven't always been good, and the bad teams haven't always been bad, but it tends to be top heavy. And so what you find is you end up with games that you wish you could be playing against teams that could be better and beat you, right? And this last year was a great example. We knew we were getting better. We knew before COVID, we knew in 2019 we were going to be pretty good in 2020. Lost that season, which is unfortunate, but we also knew our 2021 and 2022 years were going to be pretty good. And so we took that opportunity to get EP on the schedule rather than playing somebody else closer to us. And I think that was a good opportunity for our kids, because we certainly have players who are playing club who've seen that kind of stuff before, but it doesn't matter, right? You can tell kids how fast it's going to be 100 times, and it just doesn't matter until you've seen it. And that EP game's a great example. We got down there. It was a nasty day. It was cold. It was raining. But we came out sluggish. We were a half step slow and gave up 3 or 4 goals that we shouldn't have. Took us a while to get settled, and then once we did, we played them dead even from about 9 minutes on in the first half to the end. So it helped our kids, even though it was a loss. And I'd say this all along. I know you've had a couple of other coaches say it too. At the end of the day, when and if we do split our conference, which I think is coming, and we get a chance to schedule 5 or 6 games, I'd just as soon go schedule the games. Now that we're a little better and people recognize that we're some competition. The Prior Lakes of the world are reaching out. Lake LaSalle of the world are reaching out. Those are good games for us, and I would rather go lose 5 of those games and be ready when we get to sections, as opposed to going 12 or 13-0 and then getting to a section final or getting to a state game and just getting crushed. Because, you know, the first year we played at state, we played Prior Lake, and obviously that same story, right? You can only tell kids how fast it's going to be so much until they get out there and they recognize that Peyton Blato is good. And no matter what anybody says, you've got to play it differently. And it's just is a different speed. And it's not that we can't play at that speed, but we've got to be used to it before we get a chance.
Not to make excuses for those the state outcome, and they weren't blowouts by any means. You know, you're in both games, but you know, after, you know, if we're looking at some of those scores late in your season leading up to state, is that adjustment while you finally get to state or that you had a decent section final game, are you a step behind because of that schedule?
Yeah, I would say in our case, no. I mean, at the end of the day, we've had a chance to play competitive games. You mentioned the Centennial game. I know the Champlain Park game before that. You know, Coach Jeff coaches Yeti with us. Great program. The score was farther apart than it really was. I mean, they played us to a 1-goal game earlier in the year. So at the end of the day, you know, that's you know, just part of how it goes, right? And we were 4-4 with Rosemont at the half. So at the end of the day, we were playing with them. A couple of mistakes, and you get in a bad situation where you give up a couple goals. You guys have all been there, right? You give up 2 or 3 goals in a row, and then it's a matter of, you know, can you get them back? And you were around for the state tournament too. It was hot, it was nasty. So you know, you get down and you start dragging your head a little bit, and you know, it happens. In the Elk River game, same story, right? That Elk River team, you know, I think the most exciting thing for me is, you know, you mentioned, you know, how are you growing the program? I think part of it is we're getting better because our kids are playing more. Part of it is the North Metro is getting better as well. So, and I think for years, you know, it was kind of I mean, it was maybe unspoken, but, you know, whoever the North Metro team, the Section 7, Section 8 team that gets there, Maple Grove obviously was a little bit better than that, but, you know, you're coming to be the 8th seed and get slaughtered by whoever the 1 seed is. And I think we're getting to the point now where Elk River played Lakeville South really tight. We played Rosemont tight. So we're getting to the point now where those games are getting better. And then one of us is going to break through at some point and win one of those state games. And that's going to be the next level for us. And we talk about it all the time with our kids. That's the next level for us. You know, winning that section a couple of times, that's really good. Now we need to get to the next level, which is let's get to state and let's make some noise. Let's win that first game so we get to the right side of the bracket and we can play over there. That's the next step for those of us on our side of the city. And then, you know, hopefully we continue to raise and bring ourselves up another level.
I love that. I love that point of just like the North Metro as a whole. It's exciting to watch, that's for sure.
Talk about some of your big guns you had last year, and what are you bringing back looking into 2023?
Sure. So again, it graduated a great group of seniors last year, and they're definitely going to be missed. It's our job to graduate them. So I hate to use the word lost, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to, right? It's not professional sports, so they went on to better things, and that's good for them. You know, obviously Claire Nelson, D1 commit to Michigan, was the Star Tribune Player of the Year, was a finalist for Miss Lacrosse, fantastic player, a better kid. So really great fit to our program. She's been playing with the rest of our seniors for a long time. So Katie Evans, Sarah Kaiser, Kara Stay. We had a fantastic group of seniors last year, Claire Lakefelt, who worked together and really were the core of our team. So from that standpoint, you know, it's sad to have those kids not be there, but at the same time, great opportunity. Our 2023 class is small, but it is strong. We've got you know, Eva Bach, our goalie, returning. Emma Tammy, all section player from the past. Lizzie Struby, all section player from the past. Jaden Wilson, Annika Alstrad, good solid senior group there. A couple of those, Emma's committed to UW Eau Claire, Lizzie's committed to St. Benedict. So a couple of players who are going to play postseason. Ava certainly could if she wanted to. She's going to choose a different route in college as well. So we've got a good solid core. And I think, you know, certainly our 2024s and 2025s are also a really good group. Our 2024s have a bunch of kids who played a lot last year, might not have contributed on the stat sheet as much. And that's kind of the way it goes, right? If you've got a senior group like ours, you have kids that played, and it's hard to see in the stats that you've got younger kids who are ready. We feel like our 24s and 25s are a really good group, and they're going to help us lead this team going forward. And we think, you know, our job is to not give up, right? Our job is not to say, you know, we graduated a bunch of kids, let's have a rebuilding year. But we're going to go out there and do our best and feel pretty good about this year.
You're a coach that's been around and Section 7. What, you know, how do you think this team fits into Section 7 in 2023? And, you know, what are you seeing from the other teams? And, you know, are there some sleepers that are coming up, or is it going to be some of the similar names that we know well? You know, what are you seeing, you know, as a whole in Section 7?
Sure. And again, the section continues to get better and the North Metro continues to get better. So, in the section itself, Champlain Park is going to be very strong. Again, I mentioned I'm a little biased there because I coach with Jeff in the offseason a lot and coach a bunch of his kids. But at the end of the day, it's a good group of kids. Their 24s are fantastic. And their last year was kind of their rebuilding year. This year they're going to be very, very strong. Centennial took us down to the wire at a section game last year. They lost some talent, but at the end of the day, they brought back some scorers and they brought back some kids who are really solid. They're going to be very good again. Forest Lake is always good. They're tough. They're physical. Jenna does a nice job with her program. So, that's a team that is never an easy out. And Chisago has been kind of on the cusp. They're that fifth team, and they're a little bit stuck as well. So they're a little farther out west, and they get stuck in that world where they don't get a chance to play a ton of really top-notch teams. And so them getting to the sections is always a little bit testy for them. But again, seeing some of those kids, have some of those kids playing for us as well, and good program that's up and coming. And I think those five are kind of the ones that stand out. But I will tell you, there's a bunch of good programs. Anoka's got a good program that's up and coming. There's multiple other programs who can make some noise and who are getting better and who are growing numbers, which is the biggest thing. As they get youth programs and as they're kind of picking back up, that's a huge part of what we're trying to do up here, and it's making those teams better.
Katie, what do you got?
So this is just kind of out of left. Did you start Yeti up there?
We did, yeah. Daniel and I started Yeti with our wives in 2016, and have kind of continued on through then.
So we don't ever really bring up club, it kind of doesn't come up. But just because you mentioned that, and you're a high school varsity coach, and I just like your vibe, and it could be totally your opinion, no judgment, kind of how do you deal with kids not playing for Yeti? You know what I mean? For 36, obviously we want everybody that I coach always to play with me all the time. I'm not a varsity coach, so it's I have a little bit more flexibility that way. And obviously all these teams all the time, we all want kids. So how is it as as last week, Kelsey, we didn't ever talk, club doesn't really come up. So I'm just curious, kind of how do you navigate that? And how do you kind of battle that personally? Of course you want everyone to play with you. But I also believe that there's a lot of people coming to you being these are the clubs I'm trying out for. What do you think? And I guess maybe kind of give me the twofold. Give me your coach, your club owner answer, and also your coach, you want the best for the kids. Because we do it too. We're again, if someone from Andover was I really want to play Team 36, I'd probably be no, you don't. You don't want to drive that far. Kind of then how do you kind of battle that personally too without wanting to be these are all my kids, all of mine, play for me.
And I think we all have that. I mean, that's always the case, right? Every moment that I can spend with those kids is important. Now, the reality of the situation is, like everybody else, at the end of summer, we're done with those kids anyway. We've been lucky enough. I mentioned, Jeff Johnson coaches at Champlain, so we get to work with each other's kids, so that helps. We can make that work in the off season. But I think the benefit we've had going for us is that we fit in a different niche than maybe an Elite would or a Pipeline or a True does, from the standpoint that, and I tell kids this all the time, tell me what you want, tell me what your goal is, and let's make sure that goal works for you. So if your goal is that you have to play for a D1 program, Claire's a great example, right? I mean, Claire was with us. She was an Elite kid forever. And honestly, she was very clear. My goal is I want to play D1 lacrosse. That's very important to me. At the end of the day, we're not the best path for you to get there, right? We're not playing East Coast tournaments. We're not doing that kind of stuff. So, go find a program that works for you. That's fantastic. There's a bunch of really good programs in the state to take great care of their kids. But what I always make sure with my kids is, does that make sense, right? Because price point wise, that's a different price point. If you're looking to stay closer to home to get to practices and you're still looking to play hockey and you still want to play in some tournaments and get some extra practice time, we're a great fit. But if they choose to go play, Lakers is on this side of the city. If they choose to go play with Lakers, we've had kids do that. That's fine with me. My biggest thing for them is play. Go play somewhere, right? Because at the end of the day, we'll bring you back into our high school program. It helps me immensely if you're playing clubs somewhere, you're doing something in the off season rather than not playing lacrosse. So, selfishly, you'd always love them, but at the same time, I just want them to play. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that they know what they want post high school, and that if we can help them get where they want to get, that's fantastic. We put a bunch of kids in D3 and D2 programs. If they want something more and they're willing to work for it and it's worth it to them, then let's find you a better fit that works for you.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling it was kind of going to align with my values too. And I agree with you completely. And I was like, I kind of had this feeling, like I said, that's why I asked it, because I kind of liked your vibe of like, that's the message at the end of the day. And I just, sometimes we get so wrapped up in this, like the hype of it all and just like the advertising of it at that time of year. And I think just deep down, and like, I love hearing it from the horse's mouth, like North Side, whatever. And like, we preach that too, that it's just like, we try to like, put it back on them. And so I'm glad that you're doing it right. You're doing it right up there. Like I said, I kind of knew, but it's kind of like, it's really good to kind of hear selfishly for my validation, but also for like listeners and people to be like, remember, like you get a choice in this market and you get a choice. And like, what do you want? Because it's like, there's plenty of kids that it is just like, I just want to go to tournaments and I just want to like make my varsity team. And that's great.
You bet.
Bill McCracken would hate that, but he also, there's like a bunch of people out there that you're right, that it's like, I need to get the highest exposure. And it's like, well, we don't go out east. So then here's some other options for you.
Yep. And I think as long as we all think about the same thing too, which is, you know, much like lacrosse, South Metro versus North Metro is growing. I mean, you guys get better when we get better. Same thing holds true with out of Minnesota, right? If we all, I mean, as Minnesota coaches, we should be a big fraternity, because at the end of the day, when we go out east, or when we go to Colorado, which we did last summer, that's an eye opener for us. But we get better when everybody in Minnesota gets better. So yeah, I mean, I want Elite to do well. I want 36 to do well. I want Pipeline to do well, because that comes back to us, and it helps drive the level of play in Minnesota, which I think is important.
It's so true. It's so true.
Looks I love that, Coach. That's awesome. That's really cool to hear somebody say it blatantly like that. That's awesome that that's part of our community.
Another club owner too, of not just like, no, you have to play Yeti.
Right.
You live in Farmington. You have to come practice up in Andover.
I do have one question before PMAC gets to our final few. Being a big basketball fan, I got to ask, who do you got winning the tournament this year?
So I have, again, as a bracket guy, I have Houston winning, so we'll see how that goes. But it's been a weird tournament period, so it's been interesting to watch, and always fun to see some of those upsets happen, and you know, excited to see it keep going.
Nice. Yeah, I got Houston too, so
nice.
Let's go Cougars.
There you
go. You know, a peek behind the curtain, what's a culture thing, or what's maybe a tradition of, you know, Andover girls lacrosse?
Yeah, so a couple of things stand out for us. One, we talked about it, and I use the term family all the time. I know it's cliche, but it is a big thing for what we're doing. So one of the things we've done since I started is a big sister, little sister thing. So our upperclassmen have one or more little sisters, juniors or sophomores or freshmen, that they have to hang out together for practice for the first few days. You know, they'll bring each other little gifts and candy and stuff at games, and it just kind of, it builds that bond between them, you know, eventually. And it's a good reminder to our seniors, you used to be a freshman, and to our freshmen, eventually you're going to be a senior, and it's going to be good for you to continue the program, because that's the goal, is when they come back, you know, that they recognize they helped to build this, right? Even though they might not have been on that team that went to state, they were the beginning of that team that went to state, even in 2015, when we probably only won 4 or 5 games. The other thing we do that's a little bit unique, we talked about the youth program and the tie-ins there, but we run our coaching staff as a across the board coaching staff. So I know some programs, especially bigger programs, will have, you know, a varsity coach, a JV coach, and a B squad coach. So in our world, our 3 coaches are coaching all 3 levels. So we'll do, you know, varsity practice for a third of the practice. We'll do a middle group where we have them together, where we do our conditioning and get the opportunity to work them together. And then we'll take our JV and B kids at the end and run them separately. So, you know, it makes for a longer day, it makes for a little more work. But from our standpoint, we feel like it really helps drive home the culture, and it really helps drive home to our JV and B kids that you're going to be varsity kids eventually. We want to know you, first of all. And we want to make sure that you know us, and that you recognize kind of what we're trying to build in the program, so that when we do have to call on you in a year or a month or a day, you're ready for that, and you know the voices you're going to hear.
That's interesting. I know one of the key drivers on the Laker gal staff is kind of making it one program and feel like one program. I know that's one of their missions this year that I've heard them talk about. So that's an interesting and I'm going to say unique. I haven't heard that before. Sure. A unique way to make it feel like one big program.
Yep, absolutely.
What's your favorite thing right now? Yeah, what are you into?
So we talk basketball. We're going to go the other direction though. So I'm a huge NBA fan and into the Timberwolves in general right now. I'm excited to kind of see the way they've navigated this season, and so I'm a little bit on the edge of my seat every single game because it's a tight playoff race, and are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? More nervous than I'd like most nights, but that's kind of in the precursor to the lacrosse season starting when there just is no free time. That is kind of the free time that's taking up my free time at this point.
I know how you feel, not Timberwolves, but Wild. About 3 weeks ago, I was saying trade everybody but 97 and Boldy, and somehow they turned things around. So I know it's a wave of emotions come playoffs, this time of year.
Is your wife a basketball fan?
She is. So
Okay.
absolutely. So she's,
Yeah.
I'm certainly not not going to hang out quite as much as I am and watch, but definitely, more than willing to sit down and watch the game and is pretty up on it.
That's good. That's good. That's fun.
Katie does not follow it at all.
I'm very particular that I don't like watching sports on TV.
Okay.
So like I love sports. We just got into the Full Swing Netflix show. I got really into that.
Got it.
But I'm not watching golf on Sunday.
Okay.
I'm not watching, even I don't really like watching hockey. I love hockey, and I'm like, I don't even really like watching it on TV. We watched Paint last night. Didn't really watch much of it because I don't really like watching sports on TV.
You're consistent though, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
The final question that we ask every guest: what is your alley? This can be something that you're passionate about today, this week, this month, this year. Maybe it's a lifelong thing, on the field, off the field. You can kind of take it any direction you'd like. So Coach, what is your alley?
Yeah. And I think, I would love to have something super unique for you. And I know I'm going to go down the road of a lot of your coaches, but at the end of the day, again, my wife would tell you, and she's fantastic about putting up with my obsession, but when I get into something, I get into something. And lacrosse has been that for me, the opportunity to really be able to work with those kids and give back to the community. And you all know you do this, right? That we're not doing this for the money. I mean, it's not paying the bills. So for me, I can go to work during the day, do my job, fabulous place to work. And then, I come to this field for all of the rest of it, right? For all of the positive reinforcement from being able to have those kids smile and see things they're doing and watch them improve and watch them from when they were 8 to when they are 18 and really get to see, what happens when they put their minds to it and they do something they love, and seeing those kids come back year after year. That is my passion at this point. Probably, again, I'm sure that, in a quiet moment, my family would say a little more than it should be, but just one of those things that, and lucky enough, again, I think the biggest thing I should say is lucky enough to have my kids grow up with me. So that was probably the biggest piece of it, is both of my daughters not only played for me, but coached as well. So it was kind of one of those things where that was just the way our world works. We went to high school practice. We walked or drove from high school practice to youth practice, coached youth practice, came home, had dinner at 9:00 at night. And that was just an opportunity, lucky enough to not only be able to do it and love coaching and love what I do, but also be able to spend time with your kids and hang out and watch them grow as both players and coaches. It's been fantastic. And I think, the running joke in my family is, are you going to make it to 85 or are you going to quit coaching first? And we'll see what happens there.
Coach, thanks for coming down the alley. Way too humble. I think the people are going to agree with me. You came in way too humble. You're building something special. You're doing it the right way in Andover. And I good luck this spring. And we hope to see you at the end, because we're not gonna be able to see you at sections where we coach.
No, absolutely. You guys have your work to do, and end of the season wouldn't be a bad place to meet.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Or like youth, MS Lac State
Sure.
or something. We got a lot of year left to see each other. I love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to Coach Brad of Andover Girls Lacrosse for coming down the alley. Great interview. Katie threw in a few awesome questions that I think, made that interview unique. We haven't really gone down a couple of those paths with a coach yet this spring. So
you want to know what path he did mention? And I hate to bring this up about the playing year round. Phil McCracken, if he's listening, he's pissed. Phil McCracken is mad that the girls in Andover are playing year round and it's not just an activity anymore. And they have some state representation to show it.
Moving right into the boys. Representative Alex Johnson of Blaine Lacrosse gave us a little quick flash of the sweatshirt. Alex, welcome to Down the Alley.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, going very well. Sorry, I'm losing my words. That was a long interview. I think I've been on the field like once or twice with you at a Minnesota Wheat Kings thing. Maybe when we played the Gophers, or were you on the Gophers? I don't remember. Was there something where we were on the same field together?
Yeah, it was a few years ago. I was assistant coach for the Gophers. We had that scrimmage, but had to take some anger out on the boys and play on the opposing team for once.
That's how it was. I was like, I thought you were on our team, so that's
Oh, yeah.
good. Ted, do you know Alex at all, or JP?
Yeah, we met at the Wheat Kings last summer when I was doing some Down the Alley content. But yeah, some brief interactions here or there. Good to have you on. Good to talk to you face to face again. So welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, Alex, I don't know if you remember me, but I was coaching at Team Minnesota when you were there. So I probably briefly I didn't coach your team specifically, so I had a younger group, so I didn't really have any interactions with. I do remember you being one of the kind of the stud players in that program. Obviously went on to play at a really high level and now coaching, which is great, and I'm sure we'll dig into all that, but excited when Coach Beach said that you were coaching at Blaine. I was like, hey, that'd be a great guy to have on the podcast. So I'm glad you were able to make it work.
Yeah, luckily I get to talk to Beach often, and it's been a great mentor for me. So it was a quick text.
Hey, without further ado, let's bring it back to the beginning. Being a Minnesota guy, how were you introduced to the game of lacrosse?
So I'm the youngest. I have an older brother, and we were both a big basketball family and whatnot. My dad ran the Blaine basketball club and everything. And all of his buddies started playing lacrosse. So he started doing it. And then, being the little brother, just copied everything he did. So wrote myself into it. And my parents actually started Blaine youth lacrosse as well. So it was a real family affair.
So you're a Blaine guy through and through.
Oh, yeah.
Love that. So what, not to like skip ahead, we'll go back, but when did you come back to the Blaine program as a coach?
So long story short, went to boarding school after my sophomore year at Blaine, went to Culver Academies, played there for a bit, and then ended up at Loyola, Maryland for my 4 years, graduating during the pandemic 2020, spent 1 year at Centennial as an assistant coach under Beach. And then, the former head coach, Josh Schwartz, recommended me. I was hoping that a hometown kid could take it over in last year, and was happy to get back to the community.
UMac loves an alum hire.
Oh, yeah. It's good.
Favorite kind of hire. You mentioned it. You went to Culver. Not something you hear, a lot of Minnesota guys do, or gals for that matter. Not a lot of Minnesota people ending up there. What was that process like, and what drew you to that school?
Yeah, I was playing for Team Minnesota at like a Notre Dame team camp and whatnot, and I was lucky enough to get to the All-Star game, and I ended up guarding, if you guys know Pierre Byrne, his dad's Jerry Byrne, head coach of Harvard, and he was at Culver, and I was lucky enough to guard him in the All-Star game, and then the Culver head coach was my coach for the All-Star game. So I think I took away a ball from him one time, and I guess that was enough. I don't know if he watched the rest of the game. I'm pretty sure I made a few mistakes, but he talked to me, gave me his card, and a year later, my parents sent me off. Military school. What's better for a 16-year-old, right?
Were you causing problems at home, or what led to that?
We don't have kids. PMAC and I are married. I don't know if you know this, and we don't have kids. And it comes up once a week that our future children are going to military school, and I'm like, we have no military any background, and I don't know why. But once a week, we don't have kids, and he's like, they're going to go to military school, and I'm like, all right.
I know that's the big argument right now between me and my wife is when we have kids, if we'll send them off or not.
Military school for sure. PMAC was your biggest supporter, so
was that a thing in your family, or was it just kind of a one-off deal?
Just a one-off. It just kind of happened, And, it's kind of hard when a coach is recruiting you to a boarding school and like you hear about people going off, and me and my mom were talking about it. It's like, I think those families are a bit crazy and whatnot. And you get home and the inside lacrosse cover is Pierre Byrne, who you were just guarding. He's on the cover of the magazine. So that goes a long way.
I think it's like kind of starting to become more and more of a thing in Minnesota for kids to go off to these postgraduate or boarding school type deals. What's like one big piece of advice for somebody out there that's thinking about doing it, either in their decision making process, a piece of advice, or while they're actually there, being a young kid going off to a different state, new group of people, new team? How do you thrive in an environment like that?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is don't go to it like just for the sole reason of playing lacrosse. I was not a good student when I was at Blaine, 45 kids per class, had some ADHD, so that didn't go well for me. So the big selling factor was the 12-person classes. And it honestly, it made me, and we joked about this, of that I would have flunked out of college. And I mean, luckily we didn't have to find that out. If I would have graduated from Blaine, it wasn't good for me. But going to Culver really held you accountable. And we had study hall from 8 to 10 p.m. every single night. So I legitimately had to get my homework done. Like, you're locked in your room doing homework. You can talk to your one roommate, but they have stuff to do as well. So it really grounded me. But yeah, all the kids that go around boarding school and whatnot don't have the expectation of I'm going to start or I'm not going to be happy. You have to really bust your butt towards it, and it's really preparing you to play college lacrosse. I remember, I think in my sophomore year, I was ranked 40th in the country for lacrosse and in the Inside Lacrosse magazine. I got to college and I think I set a record dead last at close D, LSM, and short stick D mid my freshman fall. And I somehow snuck on the field and I was second LSM for the season. So it's just preparing you, and it's a mental game. It's just whoever wants to work the hardest and can be the most positive and get through things. You come out on top, hopefully, right? Everything needs to line up.
That's such good advice.
Ted, were you itching for the microphone?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a moot point now, but it is funny. We've heard that a few times about people just going off to a tournament, whether it's at a team camp or whatever, a regular tournament, and they happen to cover or be like, or go against like their matchup, whether it's offense or defense, of like somebody who is maybe a highly touted recruit or whatever, and just does a couple things well, and it kind of turns into something. We had a player in our club program that same thing, defenseman covering a recruit, a commit of a school, a D1 school, and he just played really well, and they said, well, if this recruit was our number one attackman and you shut him down, then you probably should be on our depth chart. So I think it happens more than people maybe think. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is sometimes we overcomplicate getting recruited or how to do it all. And it's kind of just go out and be a good player and go out and play and do your best. And sometimes things fall into place like that, and a little bit of luck, but that's a cool story that how like that one day just kind of navigated to the rest of your life. Really.
Exactly. It was a really cool experience. I'm really lucky.
So I gotta ask, you're at Loyola, Maryland. You played with the superstar talent that could have been in the PLL, Pat Spencer. Did you guard him a lot in practice, or did you ever shut him down once or twice? Like, what was it like playing with somebody that's just kind of an ungodly, unreal talent on the lacrosse field?
Yeah, I like to, whenever people ask about Pat, first off, he's an awesome guy. He's really cool. When he played basketball at Northwestern, and they played against the U of M, he actually gave me tickets and my whole family, and we got to sit front row with his family and watch him, which was awesome. But I think my second week on the team, I stripped him and took the ball and started running upfield, and he chased me, cussing at me. Finally got the ball off, and he tackled me to the ground, shoved my face in the ground, and said, "Don't do that ever again." And he's just really competitive, and you just, you'd be in a scrum and he'd just cross check you in the back or something, and you just realize it's nothing personal. He just hates losing. Like, he'd play board games and he'd flip the board if he thought he was going to lose. It's just how he was.
That's awesome. You kind of need I won't necessarily call him a psychopath, but somebody who's that dedicated to winning. Like it does
Yeah.
kind of up the competition for everybody else. And yeah, every now and then he might get under your skin, but then all of a sudden you're playing a lot harder, and then you all take the ball away from him, and there you go. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's just something I'm trying to get my Blaine boys to start getting a little bit more competitive because they're worried that someone's gonna take something personally and just never forget it in practice. And it's just like you just got to realize we're all on the same team, we're all friends. It's just like sometimes your brother really makes you mad some days, and you just get over it.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I I've always felt like that competitive, like that hyper competitive edge was something that really set apart maybe like a Division 1 player from like a lower level, or not even Division 1 from a lower level. That was probably the wrong terminology, but there's a lot of good players, a lot of good athletes, but then kind of like as JP said, that kind of crazy level of competitiveness um is like what maybe sets somebody a little bit higher, is just because they just can't handle losing so much that they'll do everything in their power to win. Like, do you feel like a lot of guys were like that at Loyola, or was it him in particular?
He was far and away the most aggressive with it, but I would say you could tell by the competitiveness of like who played the most. And it's like it's just a mentality, and it's something that people don't realize is like they think it's a cockiness from being so good, but I think Pat led NCAA in turnovers for like 3 of his 4 years. Like he made a lot of mistakes. It's just he got mad from those and he made up for it.
Interesting.
Before we dive into the Blaine Bengals, I would love a quick, we're a big fan of Coach Beach, had him at the coaches summit. He loves barbecue. So we have a lot of easy layup talking points. Give one beach story that, down the LA Nation would love.
So every year Beach gave the same speech apparently, and I was only lucky enough to be there for one. So every year at prom time, he would get the boys together and he'd say, and he wouldn't say anything specifically, he'd just tell a quick little story, and it was he's got a young child that he'd make pancakes for. His kid would only eat the center of the pancake because he only liked the most done part, and then he would leave it at that.
Moving
But
on to the Blaine Bengals, a program that, again, Section 7, we have a lot of, South Metro bias. We have, but we're working on that. We're having coaches from all over the state. We got scouts in the area. We're learning everywhere. But admittedly, I know probably more about the Blaine hockey team than the lacrosse team. And that's part of why we're having you on. What's the state of the union? And maybe a little history looking back before we look forward. What's some history of the Blaine lacrosse program?
yeah, so I mean, I had that big hiatus of being gone from 2014 to 2022 here. But I know I can speak for me and my brother's time where my brother's 4 years, they went to the section championship game all 4 years. And 3 of those years are back in the day where only 4 sections were around. So technically, the section championship would be like today's state. Um, we were great at getting there. Just a little bit of stress caused us to take a step back, and we just couldn't get over that hump. But in 2015 or 2016, we finally made it to state. I don't think we've been since, but we're hoping to get over that hump again here soon.
Is it a program? Are you trying to get a lot of hockey kids? Do you have a lot of lacrosse only? What's kind of your recruiting efforts? Do you guys have a big youth program? Again, I don't know a ton about the Blaine program.
So our Blaine youth program we're getting back over the triple digit mark for total boys, which has been awesome. And we're hoping, I think only our U14s right now are the only team that doesn't have multiple teams at each age level. They're at like that little teeter totter spot of if they could, would they need about 4 or 5 more kids. So hopefully we can get that before the season starts. But most of our kids, I would say, are lacrosse only at this point. After that, we have a lot of hockey. I don't think we have hardly any basketball kids outside of a handful. But I think this past year was fun enough where we went from having 2 teams where we're going to have a B squad this year. So we had a pretty good turnaround, and the boys are spreading the word pretty well around the school.
That's huge. That's huge for the program. Kind of coming into this year, who are some guys that, you're going to be leaning on, that are going to be making some noise, this spring?
I think we automatically go to our 2 specialists. We have a great face-off athlete with Michael Aber. I think he was over 60% on the season last year as a sophomore. This year we're hoping he played a lot of box this winter. So we're hoping he can do a little bit more offensively and defensively for us and not just be a face-off specialist. He's put in a lot of work, which has been great. And then our goalie, Rylan Dickinson, he's also a sophomore last year. And I think the big takeaway from what we learned last year is those 2, if they're both hot, we win. It's easy as that. After that, we have a great senior attackman, Caden Bunis. He has such a hard left-handed shot, which is, it's hard to come by to get a good lefty. So when you have that, you really got to treat it right. But I think Anoka was sitting in a zone against us last year, and Caden had three outside rips right away to start the game. So got out of that zone real fast. So he's something that you can't really coach. He's got to be happy you have him.
DTA Nation, I'll speak for the nation. They can comment on Twitter and Discord, but I believe they're mostly anti-zone defense. Is that true, JP, Ted? We're an anti-zone nation.
I mean, I would say I'm probably anti-zone. I don't know if as the co-host, not the lead host like you, I can speak for DTA Nation, but yeah, I would say I'm anti-zone if I'm being honest.
I'm indifferent. I'm offensive coordinator. So I always just say whatever you can do to keep the ball out of the net, you run it. I don't care what it is. Unless it's U10 or U12 lacrosse, then maybe try to teach something, but keep the ball out of the net, get stops, get it back to the offense. That's all I care about.
Who's a big rival for the Bengals?
I mean, we got to say Centennial with all the success they've had lately, right? And it's kind of a sensitive subject, coaching them 2 years ago and knowing them all pretty well. I mean, I've had 5 Centennial kids come over last week to drop off their sticks for me to string. So got to trash talk a little bit, right?
So are you absolutely just dummying those sticks?
I mean, you don't want to take the business away. So it's hard. You want all the kids to do well too.
They're all just a hair too deep.
Yeah, we need to get JP at Centennial practice the first couple of days. Everybody's gonna be looking at their stick, being like, "This thing sucks. What happened?"
No, I think the sweet spot is you string it well, but you put that shooter a little bit too low.
Everything's just going right into the ground.
Right.
What are some traditions or kind of culture, of the Bengals?
We like, and I hope the boys still like this. We try to do yoga at least once a week. Try to reset. We got a beautiful new open space in the next to the weight room. There's 4 TVs in there. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, we get a little Sarah Beth yoga on YouTube, and the boys like it. They get a little calm, and yeah.
What is Keeter? Is it Yoga Fridays that Jefferson does?
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah.
So what day are the Bengals?
Probably a Thursday. We're Monday, Wednesday play game.
Ooh, okay.
So it's a big post-game thing rather than like a pre-game kind of center yourself situation.
Yeah, try to get them back to normal.
Gotcha.
Having a couple of good practice days at the end of the week.
What's your favorite thing right now? You got a book, show, song?
So last week I work from home, so I'm pretty lucky, but I have this iPad that I'm talking to you guys on right now. So I carry this around all day, and I started watching The Office from the start. Never done it.
First time ever. Like you've never, like I'm sure you've seen some of The Office, but first
I've seen a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's on TV, so it's like you don't get to pick and choose where you start from. But this is my first time going from start to finish. Yeah,
That's one of my favorite things to do. Is watch old set like from the beginning in sequence.
my fiance is a big Friends fan, and I
Yeah.
keep trying to get her into The Office because I'm like, it's just so much better. It's the same idea, but it's so much better. And every
It's not
time
the
I show
same
her an
idea
episode,
at
she's
all,
like, "Oh,
actually.
this is hilarious." And then I keep being like, "All right, let's watch it pilot to the end." And she's like, "Ah, nah, we can't do that." Like, it's one of those shows you could watch any of them one off, and it's great. But you can watch all, I don't know how many hundreds of episodes they have, and they carry the story all the way through. I mean, how do you not like seeing Pam and Jim just fall in love in The Office? I mean, there's no story better than
Hey,
that.
you might not be there yet. Might be.
Yeah.
I am there.
Yeah,
No,
spoiler
You
I'm
know,
there.
You
there's no there
ruined the
love.
whole show.
There's
You just
the love is there from the beginning, people.
you got to get past like the awkwardness of Michael Scott though. Like, it just makes you like someone's crawling on your back. Just freaks you out a little bit.
Oh, I love that. The awkward humor is the best kind of humor.
It really is.
Before I jump to our last question, I kind of skipped the whole topic of section 7, which is why we're all here. You know what? How, again, you know, you were at Centennial. You've been in this section, even prior to you coaching. You know, what are the teams looking like coming up here? You know, this spring. You know, who do you think might, you know, be the favorite going in? Is there a couple sleepers, usual suspects? What do you anticipate and expect this season?
Well, I think there's a lot of seniors that graduated last year for Chisago, and Centennial. I mean, Centennial have 3 Division I guys leave, but the crazy thing about them though is they still have Brol Sherman, who as a sophomore last year had the most points out of the program, which is unbelievable. So he's going to be a bit scary, and I get to see him at Team Minnesota stuff throughout the year. So just try to tell him to take it easy on us. I think he's had like 6 goals against us last year, so we're a little nervous, but we'll be all right there. But yeah, I think Chisago is going to be the interesting one with their senior attackmen all gone. They've been around, they've been menaces throughout the section for the last 2 years. So a lot of goals, well over 150 combined. So you know, it's kind of we're trying to see if there's gonna be a new dog in town or not. I know Spring Lake Park graduated there too. Their midi and their attackmen that were very dangerous. So it's anyone's ball game at this point.
What
Yeah,
about the? Oh, go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, no, I noticed when I was looking through some of the teams, Chisago, it seemed like their whole team was seniors. I feel like it was just like all seniors. So that will be interesting. And then Duluth didn't they have pictures on Lax Hub, but they don't have grad years. So I got to see, you know, team photos, but no grad years. But I know their one guy that was far and away was a senior as well. So it sounds like Section 7 had a lot of talent move on to whatever the next thing was in their life. So opportunity for some new guys to step in.
Absolutely. And I'm happy you said that because I had all the major players that I think would be in it this year. I had them all pulled up and looking at their grads, and I couldn't figure out the deal with because that kid had like 74 points or something like that. There was a huge like 40-point drop off.
I'm 99% sure he was a senior last year. So I don't know. Hopefully, if you guys play Duluth regular season, he shows up. I apologize in advance.
I have been trying to figure out also if they're splitting into both Duluth schools or they're still just one program because when people have been posting their schedules, they've been posting by different Duluth names. So I didn't know if they're still one program.
That is interesting. I have not seen that. I guess good for Duluth area to have enough guys now to potentially have 2 schools. But that's I don't know, that's an interesting thing now in the section shakeup, if you will.
That'll be really interesting. We're going up to Duluth, so
Yeah, your schedule says Denfield. So does that mean
mine does?
Yeah, it says you're playing because I wrote it out for our calendar. But
So
I'm pretty sure I don't know if you're just playing there or you're playing Duluth Denfield as their own team.
So what would it be? Duluth Denfield? What would the other Duluth
And
team
East,
be?
probably.
East?
Maybe
Isn't there a private
Hermantown.
school up there?
No,
Marshall?
Hermantown has their own team.
Marshall is
Hermantown Proctor are together, yeah.
right? There's 3 high schools in Duluth.
Yep.
Yeah.
My whole family's from there. They're from
Yeah.
Superior,
So ask
so we know
them.
that
Why
area
don't
pretty
you ask
well.
that? You're the Duluth source, okay? So you need to ask them. They need to go around to the neighborhoods and
It's-
find that out for us, and you need to report back to
All you're
Dominic.
doing is starting rumors. You've given
Yeah.
us no real information.
You know what? I'll text my cousin. He's a senior at
Text your
Superior.
cousin
They're all his
and then
buddies.
report back. He needs to go knock on some doors and find out the information.
I've
for
just
us.
been curious.
I thought they
T-Mac,
asked,
T-Mac, shouldn't you know this? You're playing them.
Yeah, you're going.
Oh,
up-
you're starting rumors. I thought I was just playing Duluth. I don't know.
I'm
Well,
curious.
I don't.
Clearly you're
I
not
also
day
scouting
by
at all,
day
P-Mac.
kind of guy. He kind of goes by the day. Details kind of don't really matter until the day of.
I win the day.
That's why he has me for that.
Every day but Tuesday. So
Yeah, hates Tuesdays.
Worst day of the week. So that was a hell of a scouting report. I don't like, end of this episode, I'm gonna have to have a ranking, and you gave me no real indication, and you just said Duluth might have two teams, they might have one team. So
And there was a lot of seniors last year. In Section 7.
I just went DuluthWolfpack.com. I think they were the Wolfpack last year, right?
Yep.
Sounds right.
And I go DuluthWolfpack.com or .org or whatever it was, and it starts spitting out ads and sending me to random websites. So maybe they got hacked and the rumor started. I mean, maybe it's a Hermantown Proctor thing. Getting in,
Maybe.
trying to cause a schism in the locker room.
do they have zero teams? Are they not gonna have a team this year?
I don't
Trip's
know.
A lot
canceled.
of seniors.
Yeah, a lot of seniors.
This is chaos. I don't know. You're supposed to help me with my rankings. And
From our
I
10
could've sworn-
listeners, somebody from Duluth better be listening to us.
I
According
could
to-
have sworn that there's two different
So
names.
according to LaxHub, there's the Duluth boys, the Duluth girls, and the Duluth Marshall girls.
Ooh.
The
Wow.
Hilltop.
So maybe the girls have two teams and the
So
boys have one team.
Marshall is splitting off.
Marshall's private, right?
Right. Duluth Marshall's probably split off from that. Good for them.
For girls or boys or both?
It
We
looks
don't
like it looks like just
just
girls,
girls.
just girls on LaxHub.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, all we've gathered is we don't know how many teams Duluth has, and there's a lot of seniors that graduated out of Section 7. And that one kid from Duluth that Ted thinks was a senior scored a lot of points.
He might be a sophomore for all we know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Hey, the nice
Judging
thing
by his
is,
photo.
I was gonna say the nice thing is, just like every other episode, we have no idea what we're talking about. So at least we're consistent.
Well, we're the four clueless lacrosse coaches.
Now we really don't know what we're talking
Now
about.
maybe a fifth. That's a guest. I'm not going to call him clueless, but
We go
he's
to the North Metro and we're running into a black hole.
yeah.
I'm
okay.
curious. I need to know this as well.
I'm sure
And
you are
play 'em.
curious.
Yeah, you play them. They could like completely change up your section. PMAC's just going for an overnight out of conference game.
Yeah, but he can give me a heads up, right?
He can. He can.
I'll let you know who we play in May.
Even though it's in May. So
Yeah, I
Oh,
know we play them
that's
one of the
too close.
weekends in May. Okay, we're gonna move on. Last question that we always ask is, what is your alley? This can be something you're passionate about today, this week, this year. Maybe it's a lifelong thing. On the field, off the field, you can take it any direction you want. What is your alley?
Well, I probably want to take this time to then talk about, we're going to have a focus this May on mental health awareness for our program. We're going to have t-shirts and whatnot made for our boys for their shooter shirts. Suicide has hit our program, and one of our coaches just lost one of his college buddies on Monday. So it's been a big focus for us, and we want to support our boys and make sure that they know that they have us and they have each other, and we're one big family, and we want everyone to be as mentally strong as possible.
I love that, especially in like boys sports and as male coaches. I think that's something that, our society and females are getting better at. I think it's still definitely like a challenge, but I think for personal, I'm not a boy, but I think if we can get our boys talking about it in youth sports, I think that's going to just change so many lives and just give them that platform. So good on you guys. That's a really sad thing that happened that hopefully you guys can turn around and really change the culture of your program.
Are you doing any specific game where you're going to make that a focus, or is it just more of like you're going to wear the shooter shirts for the month and just kind of integrate it into everything?
The latter, mostly because our schedule, we only have one home game in all of May.
Oh, wow.
So that's gonna be senior night, and then that kind of derailed the plans a little bit. But the awesome thing about this was that one of our players that this has affected is the one that brought this to the table.
Cool.
And it was fully on him, and he brought it to the booster club and us and everything. It's awesome.
Super
Yeah,
cool.
when you guys launch those shirts, send us a picture. We'll get it shared on social and kind of show off what you guys are doing.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
For sure.
Well, Alex, thanks for coming down the alley. Good luck to the Blaine Bengals this spring, and become a wagon, become a down the alley wagon this spring. It sounds like Section 7 could be wide open. There might be more teams, there might be less teams. We have no clue yet, but good luck this spring, and hope to see you at a field here soon.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Let me talk about the program in the section.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you to Coach Johnson for coming down the alley. Coach Johnson of the Blaine Bengals, a program that's been there. They've made some noise, and Katie said it. I love alumni hires. Absolutely love it. He's a Blaine guy through and through. Grew up there, lived there. He knows the culture. He knows the people. He knows what that program needs. So great hire by Blaine. And it sounds like they're on the rise. They're rebuilding the youth program. Numbers are on the rise at the high school program. So good luck to the Bengals this spring.
I don't know much about Blaine, but that's a great hire, and it's a great sign by the boosters or the school, whoever does the hiring up there, that they're gonna take what is, I would, again, not knowing much about them, argue is probably the best alum that they have available to them, probably most accomplished in the lacrosse world, and to go out and pull him from another program and slot him as the head coach and just say, hey, go to work. You know what you're doing. We want to invest in the program. So that's awesome. Love seeing North Side schools put a little bit more devotion into the program and get it spread out just out for more than outside of the Twin Cities area. We're always looking for new wagons. There's always room on the wagon trail, the wagon group, wherever we're going, we don't know, but we can always welcome a new wagon in. So hopefully the next few weeks we've got them slotted in.
There was a time a few years ago where Blaine was kind of a perennial section finalist / state participant. And so, it's not like they've never been there, maybe some lean years over the last couple, but they've been to the dance, and they've had good teams in the past, and it's they have other sports that do well and have good teams, and I know their hockey program is strong. Not that that's a direct correlation, but there are athletes at that school, and maybe with Alex being a part of it, someone who went and played at a really notable high level school, it will attract some interest, maybe get that youth program buzzing again. And they certainly have all the resources to, get back to where they once were.
Yeah, I'll definitely
Sounds
put
like
my foot in my mouth
team
on that one, because just looking at the records from the last years before 2022, they had all winning seasons and were 11-4 in 2020 or 19. So
that's good.
Yeah,
Well, and they're having a
mind.
B team again this year, so it sounds like the numbers are growing, and that always helps.
Yeah.
What is again? I don't know. I know the super rink in Blaine, but I don't know the school system and the culture of Blaine. It kind of seems in waves of their hockey team is winning state, and then you don't hear from them for 5 years. Is it a growing city? Is it a not growing city? Do they have a lot of kids? Do they not have a lot of kids?
It's a massive,
huge city, right?
It's a massive city geographically, and
Yeah.
I don't know in 2023. I don't know the numbers of if it's grow. I mean, I'm sure it's still growing,
Yeah.
but there was a period of time maybe 10 years ago, where that was sort of the ring of suburb that people were moving out to on the north side. So you had Lakeville was growing really fast. And, I'm kind of on the south side, maybe Rosemount,
Or
Chan, Chaska, and then Blaine was certainly Blaine and like Maple Grove were sort of on the north side. Has it slowed down? Maybe I don't know the demographic and like economic information, but it's a massive city geographically, lots of houses, lots of, developments. I would assume it's a pretty like solid, affordable standard of living, versus living in Edina or the city or whatever. And so I think it will always be attractive to working families, especially with that want more space, that want a suburban style house. And so I don't know if they're ever going to not have kids, just given the size of the city.
Yeah, and they're never going to not have sports. They've got fields and rinks for days. So I think it's a place that has the structure, right? It's got the bones and the foundation to support a great lacrosse program, a great hockey program, and I'm sure soccer too. I'm anti-soccer. I'm at war with soccer, so I won't comment on soccer. But hopefully, they have a good.
They have the World Cup there.
Yeah,
like the Youth World Cup.
USA Cup,
sorry. Which international teams come and play at.
There you go.
All right, go ahead.
As we're talking about Section 7, should we just stick with the boys here and then finish with the girls?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's mix it up. I think we've been starting with the girls the last few weeks, so let's jump to the boys since we've got that paperwork open. Like I said, I was hoping for some inside knowledge from Coach Johnson, and I think he left me with more questions than answers. So I'm gonna hand this one off. Ted, what do you see in Section 7? Because Centennial, that's probably the layup. That's probably the easy pick. But I don't like easy picks. I want the wild card.
Did they have a lot of seniors?
So
they did.
Centennial, I was thinking about this section because the last few years it's been Centennial and Chisago have been the two that have been kind of the notable teams. But Blaine, like JP said, Blaine has been a team that has been right there. They've had winning seasons. They've been a strong program. Duluth has been an up and coming team. Had a superstar player last year. They were 8-7, so they were sort of middle of the road, struggled in playoffs. A lot of growing programs in this section. You have, Hermantown Proctor, you have Duluth, you have Spring Lake Park, Coon Rapids now are co-opt. Champlin has been good in the past. And I think this is the type of section where when I make my picks, Centennial is going to be my one, just because I think they have the most not the most structured program, but sort of the most stable program of youth and city and been around for a while. But I truly think any one of these other teams in this section could pop off on any minute. I think in the next couple years, I think we could see a first-time state team on the boys' side for Section 7. Champa Park has been to state before, but the Spring Lake Park Coon Rapids, they did better last year than they had done previously. Duluth and Hermantown Proctor at any time, could get to that point where they have enough depth and enough people playing where they could be a strong team. Anoka was a team that represented Section 7 a few times.
They've been there. They've done it.
And they're done it. So at what point are they back in the mix? Andover, not traditionally a strong program on the boys' side, but fantastic hockey program. I think their basketball team was at state too this year, or maybe it was their girl. I don't know if it was their girls team or boys team, but they have good sports, good athletics, a lot of kids, a lot of athletes, growing suburb. So like at what point are they going to be in the mix? Their girls team has already been proven commodity. So I'm kind of just, it's hard to say. I'm going to go with more of a conservative approach on my Section 7 picks this year. But if I were placing futures bets, I could even throw like a Forest Lake in there. They were 1-13 last year. So this is probably not the year, but they had 3 guys at the coaches summit learning, ready to go. I mean, they're invested in winning. At what point do maybe they pop off? This is a really interesting section just of the potential of a lot of the teams.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'll put my foot in my mouth about Blaine being an up and coming program. 2021, Chisago Lakes went to state after beating Blaine in overtime, and Chisago Lakes beat Centennial in overtime in their semifinal section tournament game. And Blaine beat Duluth 9-7 in their semifinal section tournament game. So I think you're right. I think it could be kind of a toss-up. And we've talked about him a number of times this year, but Coach Beach, or this podcast, I mean, Coach Beach is out this year, new coaching staff at Centennial. A lot of guys went on to their next step, graduating. Smaller junior class, it looks like. So they're going to be young. I don't know that Centennial is necessarily the layup that they were last year to be locked in as a number 1 preseason top 4 ranking. So I like what Blaine's doing. I know they've got a new coaching staff as well, but the expectations after last year are at the very least much lower than what they are at Centennial. And if I had to pick a program to be a new coach at expectations wise, and I wanted something lighter, I would pick Blaine, because I think they've got an opportunity to kind of shock the world in a sense and take down the juggernaut that Centennial was last year. Chisago Lakes, I mean, they haven't gone anywhere. They're right back in the mix. And I mean, I think you're right, Ted. I think it's going to be kind of one of those toss-up sections. And it'll be interesting to see how Centennial rebounds from losing a lot of their top end talent, a lot of their goal scorers. And I think Blaine and Chisago are kind of, they're all right there with Centennial as that interchangeable number 1 seed right now.
All right, we're going to move right into write that down, JP. Katie, based on what you've heard, what you've listened to, the breakdowns from I'm going to say JP, Ted, and just the absolute rumor mill of Coach Johnson.
Why do I have to go first? You haven't said anything.
Ladies first. Katie, 4-1. What are your Section 7 boys rankings?
Well, JP, I'm going to go top to bottom because JP just skewed my thoughts because I don't even know where Chisago Lakes is, but I'm going to put them at my number 1.
Love it. Love that.
I'll put Centennial at 2. You know what? I'll just be like for the brand, I'll put Blaine at 3 and Spring Lake Park Coon Rapids combos at 4.
I love what you're doing. I love that.
Coach Alex he's got big plans. So I think
big plans.
This is their opportunity, and it sounds like every other team graduated their entire team. So why not Blaine?
Why?
And I think I've been sleeping on Chisago Lakes for my entire life because, like I said, I don't think I've ever been there. I've never played them. I don't even know where it is.
Hashtag why not us?
I guess.
Why not us, Blaine?
No, combos gives me a bad vibe, so I'll put Blaine in the mix for that reason.
Let's go, Ted. You had a great breakdown. I love your thoughts. I agreed with a lot of what you said, especially about the future bets. The section's wide open.
Oh, yeah.
What direction are you going? Because I felt like you were explaining what was in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, I have nothing to add.
I think, like I said, I think I'm going to go conservative for my top three. Centennial at 1, Blaine at 2, Chisago at 3. Looking at the Chisago roster, they lost a lot of seniors. Now, does that mean they're going to be terrible? No, it doesn't. There certainly could be players in the mix ready to go. They have been a formidable team, a respectable team in Section 7 for the last couple of years. So I was kind of going back and forth, but Blaine at 2, mainly because their two best players are the goalie and the faceoff guy. And they'll, say what you want about specialists and things like that. Those players have a massive impact on the game. And if they can get the ball to their big lefty scorer, they can win games. And if their goalie can bail them out or they can stop the bleeding by winning faceoffs, I think they're going to be a strong team. But I am putting Centennial at 1 mainly just because I think the depth is there, even though they lost some big guns. I think they've just had the kind of the reinforcements built through the youth program. So Centennial 1, Blaine 2, Chisago 3. My 4 seed, this is where it gets wild. Because every team I'm looking at, and I looked at before this, I was like, could they pop off this year? And I look at their roster, senior. But there's one team that had juniors and sophomores last year. The Grand Rapids Greenway Thunderhawks.
Fire me up.
A lot of underclassmen. So for that reason, I'm not ready to pick them section winners, but I think Grand Rapids Greenway is gonna be my number 4. And last year they were 2-11. I think they're going to be a 500 team this year and be able to get that 4 seed and have a chance to play one of the big dogs in the section semis, and we'll see what happens.
I absolutely love the direction you took. I was with you. I was with you. Left field. I'm into it. I'm all over it. I'm going to give JP the option. Would you like the 4th year option, or do you want to take your picks now?
I'll take my picks now.
Taking your picks now. Okay.
So I'm going to go Chisago at 4. Not a real reason to put them down there other than other teams impressed me, and that's just kind of luck of the draw. I've got Duluth as my 3. I don't know what they're doing up there.
Is this pending? Is this pending 2 teams? Is this if there's 2, are they tied for 3? What are you thinking here?
I think we have all found that the combo situation, if that's what's going on, almost sets you up to be a better team than otherwise. Obviously, for doing a combination, right, you're looking for numbers. So that's a obvious point. But I think when you bring in 2 programs, there's just some camaraderie that gets built out, and you're no longer playing for your school, you're playing for your team. And that just kind of ups the ante a little bit for people and ups the motivation, because your representative team doesn't exist outside of that field, out of that roster. So I think that whether they're on a combo team or not, I got them locked in at 3. If they are on combo, I might be looking at them a little bit higher, but the jury's still out on that one, so we'll figure that out. I've got Blaine at my 2. Good specialists, good coaches. I think they're looking to bounce back from last season and make some impact. And I've got Centennial at my 1. And like Ted said, I think they've got the depth and the program history that the rebounding from losing a long-term head coach and a lot of seniors is going to be difficult. But I also think that knowing what I know about Coach Beach and some of those guys that graduated from Centennial last year, right? It rubs off on the younger guys playing against D1 commits, being coached by a legend, right? You don't just lose that because they're all of a sudden not at practice every day. So I think Centennial will struggle this year from time to time, but I think they're going to come out on top at the end of the day. And at least right now, I've got them locked in at my 1.
All right, Ted went conservative. I'm gonna go bold. I'm gonna make some. I don't even know. I don't even know if it's crazy off the board, especially for this section, because I feel like it's wide open, and I honestly don't know. I still need to figure out my 4th team here. I'm starting at 4, so that which makes it weird. I am giving Centennial a chip for their shoulder. I am a Centennial doubter. I'm a huge Beach guy. He's making sure the boys are fed. He's making sure the boys are fired up, ready for prom. Beach is all over all of it. He's been there. He's done it. He legend. Losing Beach and losing a couple of those big guns that I had to go against in state. For those reasons, I'm giving you a chip for your shoulder. I'm putting you at 4. I'm putting you at 4. I part of me hates it because Beach program, but Beach, you're not there anymore. So I kind of feel bad, but I chip for Centennial. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Be there at the end. Win this section. It's open for anybody. Where am I going to put this team? There's a team that you guys haven't mentioned, which is kind of crazy to me. I'm gonna put them at 2. I'm gonna go Chisago. I'm gonna go Chisago at 3. I'm kind of flipping the game here. They've been there, they've done it, they've been in the mix. They graduate a lot of seniors. According to a source that I don't know if I fully trust yet. He was just throwing rumors. So again, this might come back to bite me. This might make me look like a clueless lacrosse coach like I am. Chisago at 3. This is where I think things are going to get interesting. A program, I almost want to put them at 1. But I'm going to put them at 2. And I believe, Ted, are they the Tornadoes? Are they the Anoka Tornadoes? They were the 4 seed last year. You guys have not, no one's mentioned them. I feel like Johnson didn't mention them. You guys didn't mention them. They had some graduations. They're bringing some stuff back. They went 500. They had a tough game against Duluth, in the section semis. I don't know. I think there's something here. I think the Tornadoes are going to go in there. They're going to mix it up. A team that's been there, a team that's done it. I don't know where they stand currently. But they're bringing some stuff back that I think makes them interesting. And at 1, again, this might come back untrustworthy source, but a Blaine guy. He's got Blaine blood. He's got a couple of specialists. Blake probably hates Blaine's game plan, having a good face-off guy. Well, I'm into it. You got a goalie who can stop the ball. That's only going to help you. So for those reasons, Bengals, I am with you. I am riding you till the end. Bengals at 1. You get a down the alley bump. I'm giving Centennial a chip, and I am pumping Blaine's tires. Thank you for coming on. Let's go.
You're just looking for a new wagon. I don't know what Buffalo did to you, but it looks like you're trying to get a brand new, shiny, all like the solid, unbroken wheels. The spokes are all there. You're looking for a new wagon.
If I would have talked to Ted earlier this week, if I would have been able to do a little deeper dive on what is it, Greenway, GRG, what city?
At Grand Rapids Greenway.
Grand Rapids Greenway. If I would have had a little bit more time, because and again, that's on me. I raised my hand. I didn't do enough homework this week. Ted did more homework than me, and it could pay off big dividends come the end of the year when he's gonna say, nope, I had the wagon, not PMAC this year. Ted had the wagon. So I envy the pick. I wish I would have done more research. I wish I could have joined, but I didn't have my sources. My sources didn't confirm what Ted's seeing. I love what Ted's seeing. I love his points, but I I think that could be. I'm always looking for a wagon, JP. I'm always looking.
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough.
Over to we usually end with the boys, so I'm like, all right, so that's an episode. Nope, we're just getting started. Let's jump over to the girls, Katie. This is your time to shine. I know you got the sources out working in the fields this week. And of course the sources come to play. I got a copy of the doc up right now. What are the sources seeing? What's Katie seeing? What are we hearing? Section 7, is it as wide open? Is it a little more closed? What's the vibe, Section 7 girls?
I think the words are new teams might bubble up. I think a lot of firepower was lost in this section too. The biggest thing I was finding out is about a new little Instagram. People try to be us, but they can't. They hate us because they ain't us. Another little Instagram, 3 posts. So they're the number 1 spot for Minnesota high school lacrosse coverage is what their bio says.
Oh, good for them.
And then lack spot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's old news. That's who we've been chirping for like the last 3 months.
Oh, sorry. Clearly they're not as popular as they think they are because I just found out about them right now. So sorry.
Get buried.
I do go on Instagram too. This is not a Twitter account. I don't tweet, so I wouldn't know anything. But yeah, for sure. I am on the Instagram corner of the world. But anyways, the source has a source. The source has a North Metro source.
So the source is source.
The source is source.
The source's source needs a Twitter and a Discord and an Instagram.
The source's source has a different top 4 than what the source has.
Source's source. Welcome to Down the Alley Nation. Thank you for your contributions this week. The source's source.
I think there's going to be a lot of the same situation. I think there was a lot of seniors gone. Let's talk about Andover because coach was on. Loses 10 players to graduation, which includes a ton of production led by Metro Player of the Year Claire Nelson and D2 contributor. Sources notes. Still have their goalie, but a lot of offense is lost. So I think that was a note to make. But let's go. I'm going to take the sources top 4 because I'm not going to let my source down now. So I'm going to start with on the girls side. Now I'm going to go bottom up. So JP, make a note of that. Bottom up. I'm going to go number 4.
Are you making your picks or are we talking about the teams?
Well, we're talking while I pick.
Okay.
Because we're just going to do 4 teams. So I'm just going to start from the bottom to the top and then talk about them as we go.
Got it. Okay.
Or should we do it the other way around?
No. Start from the bottom. So who are we? Who's your 4?
Forest Lake.
Okay.
Which again, Coach Brad mentioned Forest Lake. And again, it just is like, what? Like, it would just be so much more fun if, here's my plug, lacrosse could start 2 weeks early and we could have a couple non-conference games because I want to go play Forest Lake. I'll go up there.
That where Running Aces is?
He just chirped. He didn't chirp her. He called her out in a good way.
Yeah, great post-game spot.
Great girls program, and I wouldn't even know it. Looks like we just couldn't justify a higher spot, but they had a D2 goalie. Who's that? Let's give her a shout out.
Anna Melander.
Yeah, Northern Michigan. All right. So they lose her. They lose a couple other D3, D2 commits, Brooke Glumock, Megan Brown. So I think they're my 4. It sounds like they've got, they lost some talent, but hey, Coach Brad shouted them out. So I'm going to for sure push them in the top 4. Anything you guys are seeing on them?
Yeah, they were a state tournament team a couple years ago and represented Section 7.
Right on.
They were what was that?
Where have I been? Sleeping on Forest Lake, apparently.
Yep, they've been a really strong team for a few years. Unfortunately, the research that I have done, they lost a lot of players.
Mm,
And they don't even crack my top 4, unfortunately.
well,
I think this is a team that has been really good on the backs of a group that maybe has played together
got it.
through youth. And I'm unfortunately, yeah, they're not in my top 4, but again, they've been proven to be a really strong team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're good again. Especially losing their goalie, who's a stud. Is that proper to say that about a girl? What do we say?
Yeah.
We say a stud, right? You said beast, whatever.
A brick wall.
Super talented player.
Yeah.
Obviously playing at a high level. And I don't know. They were the toughest one for me just because of the history. And they do have they have their goalie that I assume will take over is a 10th grader and got a little bit of time last year, but the cage was Hannah's cage probably for the last couple of years. So that
Right
could
on.
be an interesting dynamic at the start of the season.
Right.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of things that Ted was saying. They lost over 200 points. So that's going to be tough. A big time defender and a goalie. I was ready when I remembered my favorite casino is in Forest Lake. I was ready to put them at 1, but when I actually look at it from a lacrosse perspective, I'm leaning towards more Ted. When I'm looking at lacrosse wise, I was ready to fire them up, but I don't know. It might not. Again, use this as a chip. It might not be your year. Up to 3. Who's at 3, Katie?
Champlin Park lost a D1 commit and her 2 younger sisters. I think he's talking about the Vang sisters. I think they went to Champlin Park, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think jury's still out if they're going to be able to play at Benilde. So I guess I forgot there's 3 of them. They also lost their goalkeeper. But it sounds like, where did my notes go?
They're returning quite a bit.
Other than that, right.
Like, yeah, you lose a couple of sisters, you lose a goalie, sure, but they're bringing back quite a bit of points. I'm getting more bullish the more I look at this squad, and not just a bunch of 23s. This could be sustainable as they've got a lot of points in the 24 and 25 class.
The source's source puts them at 2. So someone up there knows something we don't, and maybe it's the youngers coming up. Ted, you were nodding, saying that the numbers are coming back.
Again,
yeah, 66, 45.
not to jump ahead, I have them as my 2. Lots of depth. Yes, you're going to lose players. I think obviously when you lose like your most talented player, that's an adjustment, but a lot of 24s, a lot of 25s, a couple 23s that all had production last year. And they were, I think I saw they were a 5. Were they 5-10 last year? 5-10. Losing record, quote unquote, but
I don't see that.
a young team. They've been good. Champlin Park girls have been good for a while. Like they've been a player up there for a while. I think they're going to be good this year. So I have them at my 2.
Katie, who's your 2?
Andover. 10 players, including Claire Nelson, but you return a goalie. And I think, let me go down. Who else are they returning? Didn't I just talk about them?
Well, we have talked quite a bit about Andover. Yes.
But also returning enough. And I think I just really like what coach is doing. And I think maybe even without the points to back it up, I think he's just doing stuff from the bottom up and the top down to just really make it solid. And like I said, they are set up to be really strong regardless of what stats say. And I think sometimes that culture stuff and like strong leadership and strong bookends to fill the whole gaps goes a really, really long way.
I love that point. You know, when you're building a machine, you know, people look at you know, a team that's always in there, and you know, they're not rebuilding. They just keep reloading.
It really seems like that.
I don't know enough about, you know, who is actually in the Andover program.
Right.
But when you have a coach who's doing the things that they are doing, it makes me believe that they're going to be able to reload and not have to go through a full-blown rebuild, especially when you got an awesome goalie, you got a great defender coming back, and you're bringing back some points. Yeah, you graduated a ton. That's going to sting, but if you can reload, if you can prove that model that you have a machine, you know, you can surprise some people.
And honestly, to JP's point, you can't replace that talent. We've said it week after week. You can't replace someone like Claire. And so it doesn't seem like they're looking to replace her. It's looking like last year they let her shine, knowing well that they're developing U10s, U12s, U14s, BJV, and varsity girls behind her, you know? And so I think that's maybe why I would agree that I maybe won't put them at 1, because I think you can't replace that. But I also think that don't count them out because they've planned for this. If that makes sense.
Totally. Number 1. Who do you got?
Centennial. I'm putting Centennial, but I'm kind of second guessing it. But I take the sources notes very seriously. The most coming back, including a goalie, only lost 4 seniors. Virtually the entire defense. Source said they're the team to beat in Section 7. So that's interesting, but I'm going to stick with it. Centennial as my 1. Source has them as 1. My source has them at 1. I have them at 1. I agree with that.
Source is wrong.
You think so?
Source is wrong. I'll go
What
with
about
my
the source's
rankings.
source?
No, wrong as well. I got Centennial. I'm going to give you my rankings quick.
JP, go.
Gonna
JP,
get in
write
and
this
out
down.
of it.
Write this down.
I've got it written down. I'm too fired up to not have my script ready to go. I don't have much else to say. I just have my rankings, but I got Centennial at 4. Don't have a reason why. Not trying to copy PMAC with the boys, but you know what? I'm looking for Section 7 on the girls' side to get flipped on its head. And we heard a lot of talk from a team last year about representation of the northern side teams. And I think that team's going to be very happy. I've got Andover as my 3. I think they've lost too much talent. I think, you know, Coach Brad he's an awesome coach. He's got a great head on his shoulders, but I think this is the team that the loss hits hard, and Andover is my 3. Forest Lake, they're going to take that step over Centennial that they couldn't make last year in their semifinals of sections. They're
Great
going
casino.
to great casino, but I think the parents are going to be more focused on the casino than going to the section final game. And for that reason, the Champlain Park Rebels are winning Section 7. They're my number 1. I'm fired up about it. I'm going to hype them up. They were looking for it last year. I'm throwing the love their way. I Champlain Park, number 1. Lock it in. Send it. There you go. I'll talk to you in May.
I think you're wrong, but I think we're all wrong because the source has Chisago Lakes in here.
That's too bad. They're wrong too.
You're wrong about Andover, though, by the way.
Okay, I'm gonna break up this fight that Katie and JP are having. Ted, I know as we were kind of going through, you agreed on some, you disagreed on some. Are you somewhere in the middle of Katie and JP? Where's your head at?
You know, I'll just throw out my rankings and feel free to call me clueless or call me in the know. I have Chisago Lakes as my 4. So they had a lot of juniors last year. I think they lost, if I remember correctly in my research, they lost their best scorer, their top scorer, senior, but a lot of the other players were juniors. So they're a senior heavy team this year, which could be good, could be bad. We've seen that go both ways depending on the vibe. I could see them being tough this year just with game experience and being all seniors and just being senior level athletes. My 3 is Andover. I was debating between 2 and 3 with them, mainly because of the reasons you guys talked about. 2 high end on the 2, they're a reload program, good staff, involved staff, big school, good athletics, but lose that generational talent in Claire Nelson. How does the team respond to, as we know as coaches, sometimes you have those players that you're just like, hey, here's the ball, go get one for us.
Yep.
The calming presence that whenever we need one, we get one. Someone's got to take on that role, or it's got a multiple people have to. I think this is an adjustment year, still a tough team. I just don't think they'll be as dominant. So they're my 3. Champlin Park is my 2. I talked about it. Ton of underclassmen last year, all a year older. Didn't lose a lot of seniors. This is probably one of their window is now. And the number 1 Centennial, they were 13 and 3 last year. Yep, 13 and 3. Really good season. Lost to Andover in the section final, 9-6. So they gave them a pretty good game. And Andover was a dog last year for sure. But Ella O'Hearn, 61 goals, 20 assists last year, junior. She's going to be a senior this year. And they got their goalie who had a very respectable, about 50% save percentage, played most of their games. Also, actually only a junior this year. So I'm kind of taking the same thought process that I had from Andover. I think with Ella O'Hearn, Centennial is going to have the person, the alpha, the person to say, we need one, go get one. It sounds like the source is high on their all returning defense, or many of their defenders. Not only do I pick Centennial to be the number 1 team in Section 7, I'm going to say I'm ready to start putting them in the top 8 in the state conversation.
Wow.
So do you predict they win a game at state?
That's a good question.
Not to get too ahead, but
that's tough because Section 7 generally gets the quote unquote random draw. I don't know if I'm ready. I think the top 3 or 4 are way up there. And then that 4 through 8 to 10 to 12 are probably bouncing around, but I could see Centennial being in that 5 to 8 range this year. I don't know if I'm ready to call a state semifinalist, but I don't think they're a team you really want to play either. I think they got a lot of their key players back. And like the boys, just a program that's been around, strong youth program. So that's my bold prediction for Section 7 girls.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Already, 3 people have gotten or, given their picks, 3 very different answers. I think mine's going to be different than the 3 previous. Starting at 4, I'm doubling down on the Tornadoes. I think Anoka, it's a brand. Why are you laughing at me? It's a brand that why are you laughing? They
won 3 games.
I'm not joking around.
They were 3-12. I'm glad they have a team. I really am.
Okay, when they're top 4 in this section, clip this because the Tornadoes is a brand I can wear. It's a brand I can get behind. It's a brand that I believe in. It stirs it up. They mix it up. So laugh now. I'm not. You're making you laughing is making me laugh. I'm not laughing. I'm 100% serious. I'm in for the Tornadoes 4-3.
Hey,
Go
I
ahead.
will say, I'm looking at their roster. They didn't lose a lot of people. Whether that, I don't know what that means, but a lot of juniors that will be that are seniors this year. So I don't know. You decide how you feel about that, but they did lose their senior goalie last year, though, so that could be question mark.
Call me crazy. At 3, I'm gonna go with the source's source. I'm gonna ride with them. Chisago Lakes. Chisago Lakes. It's a brand that has scared the Lakers in the past, almost pulled an upset on the Laker boys in 2021 with a very elite Fogo back a couple of years ago. So Chisago Lakes, a team I don't have a ton of experience with, a city I don't know too well, but I'm going to trust the source's source because the source does their homework and they're going to people who are in the know, are in the weeds, and are in the know of that of this area. So I'm gonna ride with the source's source, Chisago Lakes at 3. And then from there, I am going Centennial at 2 because I am doubling down on quote unquote the process. I believe Andover can reload when you have a machine, when you've been there and done it, you've seen it with I'm going to just say the Lakers. They've been able. People have been saying, "Oh, they're done. They just graduated." 15 people year after year after year. So I believe in the machine that the coach, at least says he's doing. In the culture that they're trying to build, trying to that they're striving for. And a down the alley bump, Andover at 1. Also, we know we have some friends in Andover, great hockey programs, great athletics, growing city. If this program is half of the beauty status as the boys program over, well, former coach, now Jake, absolute beauty leading or assistant on the boys side of things. So for those reasons, Huskies at 1.
All good reasons.
I like this section. We all have something a little different, I think.
Yeah, this might be the most controversial. I mean, we keep getting more controversial, and I think this one's all over the place. I was just getting my logos ready for the rankings post, and that this might be up there with the most logos I've had to put into a post. So I like that. We're getting a lot of different schools involved with Down the Alley, getting good representation. Odds are none of us are shooting at higher than a 50% clip with these rankings by the end of it. So it's all good. So yeah, let's get some new schools involved, get some new wagons in the wagon train. And yeah, I think Section 7 it'll be one to talk about. That's for sure.
As we wrap up Section 7, I think the big topic, outside of Section 7 for us to talk about would be Down the Alley Coaches Summit that we had this last weekend. An absolute it was awesome. JP, unfortunately wasn't able to make it due to some, unforeseen circumstances. He was asking me, how it was. And, I tried to, not, I wanted to spill the beans now on how awesome it was. Cause I think it met expectations and exceeded expectations. Ted, Katie, obviously you guys were really involved as well. What are your thoughts and how do you think the event went?
It was, I was riding a high for at least the rest of Saturday, even into Sunday, of just, I didn't really know how it was going to go. I think you get a bunch of high school coaches in a room. Part of me was thinking everybody's going to love it because they get to talk lacrosse and see their colleagues. Part of me was thinking, oh, everybody's going to get annoyed and, be mad that their rivals sit next to them. And I didn't know what to think. And it was absolutely the former. It was everybody was energetic, enthusiastic, asking questions, listening to the speakers were unbelievable. I learned something from every speaker, something new. And they gave their time, which again, huge shout out to them and thank you. I know we've said it to them a bunch of times, but the food was great. PMAC, we got to get some clarification on the new rules from the officials, which you know what, that might save a couple aneurysms during the year, right? A couple blow-ups, because we got to learn the rules now versus having to go back on the bus and go, was I wrong there? Because I don't, we don't read the rule book as coaches, right? Or just assume we know everything. It was a great day. And I mean, I think if you didn't make it, we hope you come back next year. I think hopefully you could talk to some of your colleagues and get the vibe. Obviously we're going to be high on it because we ran it, but hopefully your other coaches that maybe got to go and kind of give you the rundown of how great of a day it was.
Katie, you were there kind of you're out for a little bit, and then you made a comeback at the end.
Yeah, I did have to leave midway through, so I missed lunch. And the rules interpretation, was it as electric as I think it was? There's uproar, or was it all very poised?
I thought it was actually, I liked the way that they did it.
Good.
It was, they did, they had like you make the call.
Oh, sure.
On your, you can like vote.
Oh,
They showed a clip and said, was this a push or was this not a push? Was this a goal? Was this not a goal? And then it
cool.
rated the results, and then they were able to talk about that and see how sometimes rules are like interpreted differently, or you see it from one angle. It looks like one thing. They had a great sequence. They showed 3 pictures of a coach holding up his hand. He's holding up like his hand to like do this for a player, like come here. And they showed it from one angle. It looks like he's just giving the ref the bird. It tilts a little bit more and it shows that he's like waving his hand. So it was just, illustrating that sometimes based on your angle where the ref is positioned, the call can look different. I don't think that's an excuse to not make calls or make the wrong call, but it was just showing that there's a lot of factors at play. And I thought that, I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be a boring part of the day listening to new rules, but it actually was not.
Yeah, I'm bummed I missed it. That's super cool. Yeah, I mean, I was bummed I had to leave and go coach for part of it, but like as far as like the behind the scenes stuff, whatever, it's planning an event. We never really know what's going to go great, what's going to go crappy, whatever. My over under was 10 people and I think we had like 50 registered. So I really set the bar really low for us. So it was really exciting to have such a big turnout, and it was really cool just to like have so many different teams represented, I guess, from my perspective. And like, I don't know, I was the only female like in the entire building that day, and I really enjoyed connecting with my male colleagues. Like we kind of like we're talking this morning, like for really lack of a better term, we're all kind of coworkers, and no one in like our quote unquote like real lives probably really cares about lacrosse. And so it's weird, especially like obviously me and PMAC are married and like Ted's our brother and like I do this full time, but I can only imagine those who don't do this full time. Like I would have the itch to like talk to someone about it, and to like I thrive on connection. It's one of my like characteristics whenever I do those like personality traits. It's always like connecting and like integrating and talking with people. And it's just interesting that like I coached the girls game, and this was a boys game summit. I sat in on a session and got like an awesome like session out of it. I got so much out of it. Coach John, Shout out to him. It was a great presentation. I feel like I grabbed so many nuggets from that to take on with me. And it was really cool to hear his perspective coaching the boys game and how it really isn't so different than coaching the girls game, and how a lot of our experiences are the same. And it was just cool to like meet some of these coaches and expand. And like, it's been really cool with Down the Alley to just expand the coaches that we know personally, because like really we're all coworkers and colleagues, and it's a really small group. And I feel like, kind of whoever will listen to us is going to have to listen to us. So might as well make it each other, because we actually care and know what we're talking about. And like, like our friends don't really know the game or know the nuances or really even know the ins and outs of what's going on in Minnesota lacrosse. And so it's just really cool to kind of hash that out. And I just thought it was a great, like, sort of kickoff to the season when we're so close to the tryout day. And like the gauntlet that is the lacrosse season. And like, we just waved to each other on the field, if that. And I thought it was just a really great kickoff. Like, regardless of, like I said, I'm not even a coach of the boys game, and I got something out of it, and I connected with people, and it was great to meet people. And like, I'm excited to, see their seasons and how they do. And so I really feel like there's, if you maybe thought I wouldn't get anything out of that, I think there's something for everybody to get out of. And I think the more we make Minnesota lacrosse, like Coach Brad said, like the more we bring it all up from at home here, and especially as like the coaches, it's only going to make it better. And it's going to permeate down into the kids too, and just grow it exponentially. And I think that's just really cool, because like this wasn't around really anything like this when I was in high school. And it's cool that we all don't have to go to LaxCon just to sit around and talk lacrosse. And I was super refreshed and rejuvenated and excited when I got back from that. And so, and like this one session I took this weekend kind of gave me that same fire. And so I'm really excited to add the girls next year, and like already have my wheels turning about that and who I'm going to ask and how it's going to be. And I think just at the very least, being able to just meet up and have some lunch with each other is like a really, really powerful thing to connect and just kind of grow our community in a different way. I know we say that all the time, but like, here's a way we can grow it, not by just like playing more games, getting more kids to play. Like it starts with us as the adults and kind of the leaders in the group too, I think. And so highly recommend it. Obviously I was part of it, but like, coming from a female perspective with a bunch of male colleagues coaching the boys game. I don't coach the boys game. There's something to offer. We have something to offer everyone. And
Mac, do you have a favorite presentation?
So I haven't watched all the videos, yet. We had 3 classrooms going, so we had 3 different speakers. We're working on getting all the film up. I'm sure more to come. We should have more to come on that. Probably next episode. We got a couple of, hopeful big announcements, for that Section 8 episode as we go into the season. So a couple big announcements that I'm really excited about that, JP and Ted are working on. And then, once it's up, we're going to be able to, all kind of contribute to. But so I can only speak to, kind of about the defensive room, and the defensive room all day was buzzing. We awesome speakers, right? And I know you said similar things about, maybe the offensive coaches, but absolute geniuses that these coaches got to listen to, right? You had Sean, who's been coaching Benilde up until this year. The way he, again, a lot of this stuff is, things that probably most high school coaches know, but the way he explained it and his little words and the way he twisted it, right, is like, yes, I'm taking notes. Everyone was taking notes in the D room. Same thing with Cap, right? I get to work alongside Cap, come April here, and do some youth stuff, throughout the year. Super smart guy, is somebody that I look up to, right? Somebody that I'm trying to learn from as he's been in the game longer than I have. And my favorite new coach, I've been pumping his tires. He probably thinks I'm a stalker by now. Coach Galani, he did a deep dive on the 10-man ride. Absolute beauty of a guy. And he's talking about the 10-man ride, and he's breaking it down. But again, he's into the 10-man ride more than not just because of of what it does or the system, but again, when the folks get to listen to the film that weren't there, it's a culture piece for him. So these coaches they connected what they're talking about to other things, and he used the 10-man ride as a culture piece at Lakeville North of, yeah, we're going to run the 10-man ride because I believe in it and whatever. But he took it a step further. This is how we play. Like, this is the standard. We're burning the boats, right? People talk about that. It's a saying, whatever. We're burning the boats. This is how we're doing. We are all in on this thing. And if we get scored on from the 50 10 times in a game, we're not straying away from this. So, he kind of connected the 10-man ride. I learned more about the 10-man ride, but also connected it to culture. I thought that was a really cool thing.
It's funny that you mentioned just guys jumping around. So Nick Midbow did a box lacrosse kind of presentation for the offense. It was great. Like, my brain was like sore after. I was like, oh my God, it's only the first hour and I need like a nap. But I noticed on the film, he was in the face-off session.
No.
So I don't know if he was there as a heckler. I don't know if he was there to try to sabotage Nick's presentation, but he didn't. I mean, you know what? Hey, I think he may still be team ban the face-off, but this is a testament to the coaches summit and the vibe that we've talked about. He was sitting there saying, I have an opportunity to learn something about face-offs. I'm going to do it. I would make me a better coach. I don't want the face-off. I don't like the face-off, but right now that's the way the rule is written. That's the way the game is played. So do I want to be a better coach or not? And he did. He was there. So
how would the game start without a face-off?
A jump ball.
I think they would put the ball in the middle, and then the two teams would start on their box, like respective restraining lines. They blow the whistle and they just sprint at it, and it'd just be like a this is Sparta. Like,
that sounds dangerous.
No, I think that'd be awesome.
I was just gonna add, I'm definitely very bummed I wasn't there Saturday. I was getting updates from you guys on how it was going. It sounded like it went off without a hitch, but I think, Katie, you brought up a really great point about it. Is it not only is a great way to kick off the season, but part of the reason I was mad I wasn't there is not only did I want to be a part of it and help run and all that kind of stuff, but you mentioned, like, we see these coaches on the sidelines and you probably know their name, or I've run into them once or twice at club stuff, or you played with a teammate of theirs and whatever. But it gave people an opportunity to actually, like, shake someone's hand, talk to them face to face, get to know them a little bit. And obviously when you get to the field, you're playing. It doesn't matter who's on the other sideline, right? It's a competition. You should be playing it like a competition. But we're such a niche group of people that's a really great point to say that we are all coworkers, because we are, right? Like, how many other people do you meet in your daily life that won't even played lacrosse or care about lacrosse, but are so invested in it that they are devoting 20 to 40 hours a week in the spring to be a head coach of a program or be a coach of a program. So having that opportunity to actually connect with your coworkers and find some camaraderie in the game, even though that might be your rival sitting across the table from you, and last game you played them, you were yelling at each other and whatever, right? Coach Johnson brought up a great point when he was talking about Pat Spencer. Sometimes your brother just makes you mad and you got to drive your stick into his back when he's on the ground because he beat you and you're just a little mad. But guess what? He's still your teammate. He's still your brother. At the end of the day, you come off the field, still brothers and teammates. And I think it's really important that the Minnesota lacrosse community, and I think we are, but we come together as coworkers and acknowledge that part of it while still obviously maintaining our competition. But I think that, to me, is what stands out the most about the Coaches Summit is people got to know each other on a deeper level than just, I'm scouting this person. how do I beat them?
One thing I thought was cool, and this part of the day, I didn't know how it was going to go. Like the original vision was to have retired or quote unquote retired coaches speak. From what I noticed, we ended up adding coaches who are in the game currently. They were an open book, and they were they're giving away their knowledge. And again, that's just another thank you to them who, all the speakers, retired and not retired, right? Like giving their time, but also, giving their knowledge, right? A lot of coaches, from I think y'all said it, right? From a bunch of different programs that are in different stages of their program and growing their programs. It's going to help them. It's going to help them. It's going to make the game in Minnesota better. It's going to help grow the game. Multiple ways to grow the game. And I think this event is here to stay and grow and improve on to grow the game through the coaches and give back to the coaches community and, kind of reinvest in this community. Having them on here is fun, getting to talk about their program, pump them up, maybe chirp them a little bit too, right? We go back and forth, right? It's the fun part. But that was a really, I don't know. I'm pretty proud of the event, and I'm excited on, the direction it goes. Obviously the easy layup, next ad we're doing girls, right? We're gonna get the gals involved, and help grow that community. But also, now we have a year, right? We put that event together fairly quickly. Now we get a whole year to write our notes down, reconnect with those speakers. Hey, what went well for you? What didn't go well? So, obviously more to come. And I'm already excited for 2024 Coaches Summit. It's gonna be awesome.
If you want to sponsor the 2024 Coaches Summit, all sponsorship levels are open.
Love it. And like I said, next episode, more details to come on, hey, I missed the event. I want to check out those videos. We'll have all the answers. And I'm pushing 10 JP. Hey, we're having the answers for them by next episode. So it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool, and I think there's gonna be some more news to break as well next episode, on how the season's here, and I'm excited how we're gonna get to cover it, and get you guys more content, more involved, and all that good stuff. Any last thoughts from anyone in the peanut gallery here?
Nope. I can't believe we have one section left.
Yeah, I know, weird.
Kind of went by quick.
Yep. 1 week to go until we're freezing our asses off in a quote unquote spring sport.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming down the alley with us this week to cover section 7. Like I said, we'll be back next week, section 8. And before you know it, it's going to be April 3rd. Tryouts are going to be starting. Games are right around the corner. We are fired up. We hope you're fired up. Thanks for coming down. We will see you next week.